listening to MMA Think Tank with Jay and Mike.
Welcome to another edition of the MMA Think Tank podcast. And we are going to talk about, well, a lot of stuff, Mike, but we're going to get started with the UFC 198, of course, and we have a new champ. A new champ. What do you think about that, Mike?
Tell you what, man, Jay, I'm very happy that Stipe Miocic is the champ. I'm not a big, giant fan of his, but I like the guy. He's great for the sport, for the heavyweight division. A guy that I thought was one of the few up-and-coming prospects that, for this division. And, man, he's not a prospect anymore. He's champ.
Nope, not a prospect anymore. And you know what? A good champ. Finally, we have a heavyweight champ in the division that's going to promote the division in a great way. I think that not that Verdum was a bad champ per se, right, but he didn't promote his fights very well. I don't know if that was a language thing or what, but he just didn't have it. And I think Stipe's got it.
Well, I think some of it, too, was, he had a great run up to this point. But then with Kane getting hurt, which I know Kane is rarely hurt, rarely. But, he had to sit out a little bit longer. He speaks great English, actually speaks Spanish as well, which is great. But, he never, as great as he looked with submissions and knockouts, he just never came across as that killer instinct or that killer that you get in the heavyweight division with like your Mike Tysons in boxing and, even like Fedor Emelianenko back in Pride. But Miocic kind of has that. He may not seem like a crazy brawler guy in the cage because he's so very, not just well-rounded, but he's so technical. But, man, he puts people out and puts them out hard. And so now we've got a guy that does not have that language barrier, like you said. He speaks perfect English. He's an American. He's of Croatian descent, because that's why his name is Stipe Miocic. But, going forward, I think, well, Jay, why don't we just go ahead and talk about the fight real quick? I mean, we go and recap?
Actually, what you just said there, right there, was, you said that Verdum didn't have that killer instinct. Well, last night he tried that killer instinct, and it didn't work out for him, did it?
No, it didn't. I think he got out of his comfort zone a bit early, and I'll just quickly recap it for everybody in the audience who didn't see it, or just to set up everything for what we're talking about. It was really quick. It was basically on the feet for a while. Both guys landed fairly well, and then Stipe threw a leg kick, and Verdum caught it. Couldn't take him down to his world, and I think that kind of got him a little flustered. Maybe they threw at each other again a little bit, and then Miocic landed a really hard right that I won't say quite stumbled Verdum, but got his attention, and then like the next couple seconds he rushed Stipe, and Stipe just he backpedaled, and this is where the precision comes in and the power, something Chuck Liddell used to do as well, which is backing up, landed that flush right hand, and Verdum just fell down like a ton of bricks face down at that.
Yeah, and we kind of touched on this. We thought this would probably happen, but not in the first round. Not right away like that. Well, it was actually towards the end of the round.
I'm pretty sure. Did you?
No, actually, I think I picked. I might have picked Stipe, but I think I did pick Stipe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, the possibility was completely there. I agree with you.
Yeah, but I don't think that we were expecting a first round from either side, so that was crazy. Yeah. Verdum, I just think he made a big mistake rushing in like that. It didn't make sense watching it live. Him rushing into a punch, essentially, it just didn't look right. It wasn't part of his game. Like I've never seen Verdum like this.
Yeah, it's weird. He's more of a counter guy, or a kind of stay in the pocket throw, or jump back out. And he rushed a boxer.
Yeah.
I realized that Miocic, wrestled in college, but he's a Gold Gloves boxer, and he knows what he's doing on the feet. I just wouldn't have done that. It's like pulling guard with on Verdum. I would never do that against Verdum.
Yeah, and it just seemed that he wasn't that methodical fighter that we usually see in Verdum. So he made a big mistake, and he paid for it last night.
Yeah, he did.
So
really quickly in the first round. So
yeah. So what happens next? Of course, we're thinking Overeem, right?
Yeah,
So
and Jay, I think this is going to be really interesting because something they said on the broadcast, and I looked it up, and it's true, is that there's not been more than 2 defenses by a UFC heavyweight champion. Rather, they've been beaten or they're retired or whatever. And so Stipe just wins this fight. I'm going to pick him to smoke Overeem. I don't usually get
really,
overly adamant
wow,
about wins or how people are going to win. I think he smokes him in the first round, maybe the second. The problem is going to be Cain Velasquez because I think Cain Velasquez is going to beat Travis Brown. Cain Velasquez is one of those guys who has great wrestling,
yeah, he's
but
very
great
well
striking
rounded.
as well.
Yeah,
And if he gets past Cain Velasquez, that would be his second defense. And although most of us, thought that Verdun would hold the belt a while, I could be wrong about Stipe in this situation, but I think that he has a good chance of holding it for more than twice.
yeah. I see what you're saying there about Cain Velasquez. That would be a big test for Stipe. He's very well rounded. He's got a lot of tools, but here's the problem with Cain. Will he ever be healthy enough to fight
Right.
Stipe?
Don't speak truth to power or whatever they say, because so far UFC 200 has not been bitten really by the injury bug that I can think of.
Oh, you just jinxed it, Mike. You just jinxed it.
And Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz, that fell off because of talks or whatever you want to call it. That's just all I see with the heavyweight division.
There's not much.
So it's going to be really interesting what goes on from now on.
Yeah, there's not much to see with the heavyweight division. There's only a pool of guys there that you can really throw in the mix here, a small pool. So we've got Stipe, we've got Overeem, we've got Verdum, we've got Cain.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got yeah. Go ahead.
Well, see, there's only one person right now on the rise, and that's Derek.
Yeah, I was
Derek Lewis, the Black Beast.
Yes,
he's maybe got a couple more fights until he gets there, and even then, will he be not well rounded? But is he going to be more crisp to fight? On his feet with Miocic.
Yeah,
that's he certainly has the power.
Yeah, I was going to bring him up. Yeah, we got that newcomer in Lewis, and he's the only other guy that could possibly get in the mix. But even the jury's still out on that guy. Really, I mean, he looks promising, but he's got to fight some really good competition before we make that judgment call.
Yeah,
so,
he beat
Nelson.
Well, he's gonna go ahead. Sorry,
Nelson. Are you talking about?
Well, he's
Nelson?
gonna fight Nelson next. So if he beats him, he's gonna obviously move into the top 10 and fight some guys. So
yeah, but see, even beating Nelson, we've talked about him on the last podcast. Nelson's one of those guys who basically phones in his performances now. He doesn't really.
Well, no, and I agree with that. But I mean, if he does beat him, then he will get the real competition. Is what I'm saying. Yeah,
makes total sense. Let's go ahead and move on, Mike. Let's talk about Vitor versus Jacare Souza. I actually really loved this fight. Vitor Belfort coming into this fight, there was questions out there whether it's going to be the TRT Vitor or not. Obviously not. This Vitor, well, he did a pretty stupid move as far as I'm concerned. Jacare Souza is a guy that's so well-rounded, but really his bread and butter is on the ground, and he pulled guard on him.
Yeah.
What was that about, Mike?
There's things with Vitor Belfort, as much as I like the guy, and I like Jacare as well, and I'm happy he got this win. But Vitor Belfort is very much a front runner. I've said this about a few other fighters as well, that when they're getting it taken into them, they don't come back. And Vitor is one of those guys that gives up quite easily. You saw it in the Weidman fight when he got taken down. It was done quick. There's been some other fights as well. I know the Weidman fight was the most recent one, not counting this Jacare one. But I think he was already beaten up so bad that when they got back onto the feet, he pulled guard because he just wanted a way out. I really believe that. I've actually heard some people saying that as well. So it's not just me thinking that, but other people say that as well. And that's what I think. Look, Vitor Belfort has been around for over 20 years, about 20 years. At least in the UFC, this is his third stint in the UFC. Still a great fighter, but his time in the top 10 is really done, in my opinion. He should really hang it up. He doesn't have a lot to prove except for really getting the belt legitimately, because the way he got the belt from Randy Couture was he cut his eye with the glove Not it was a freak accident, but no, he never really won that belt. And Couture beat him the other 2 times they fought handily.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Jay. I just think Souza's the real deal. I'm glad that
me too.
He got the win because he should have beat Yoel Romero.
Oh, he did beat him, yeah, but
he beat him, and then the fact that Romero was juicing anyway, he got busted for PEDs, and he's next for Souza's now next in line to fight the winner of Weidman and Rockhold. I think.
which I think that Rockhold or Weidman, if Weidman does beat Rockhold. I don't think he will, but let's say he does. I think either of those guys need to be worried about Souza big time. Souza is no joke. He's very well rounded, and if he gets you to the ground, that's it. I think it's over.
Yeah, and the surprising thing for me was that this fight basically was just the first round.
That was
it almost went the whole round, but it didn't quite get it. But Souza just got on top and did what he does, man. He gets to mount. But he didn't submit him. He actually TKO'd him with strikes. And that's a little bit of what I was thinking, too, of why Belfort gave up. He just kind of was laying there on his back and getting it taken to him. And so to see Souza just, instead of go for the submission, to finish it with strikes when he was in a dominant position, I think that's a big deal and could be a practice round for, I don't know if that sounds kind of weird, but a practice round for his next fight against one of those 2 guys, because those guys are so good that he may not be able to get that submission off, but if he gets top control, he's going to have to think about what he wants to go for.
Yeah, and it's funny, on our last podcast, I had mentioned that if Souza was to get on top, even in the first round, it could be over. But then I retracted and said, I am not going to pick a first round stoppage here. I'm going to go with a decision win for Souza. But I should have went with my initial instincts. If he were to get on top, it would be over, and that's what I'm going forward with. If Souza gets on top of anybody in this division, especially full mount, it's over. It's over.
Well, I'm pretty sure I called Souza first round. Only I called it by submission. I thought he was going to do exactly what he did, Jay.
Yeah.
Only I thought he was going to submit him in the first round, but he did it by TKO, which little technicality on my part. Didn't get it quite right, but close enough in my opinion. Yeah, well. Inside the park home run, I guess I'll just call that. But what I said though also about him fighting Souza fighting Weidman or Rockhold, I really do think the reason he went for that TKO instead of trying to really get the submission was he knows he may not be able to get it done that way with a submission, because he lost to Rockhold in Strikeforce. Now that's eons ago for both guys, obviously, and Chris Weidman has never been submitted. So I think it was smart that Souza to fight the way he fought, unless for some reason he had some sort of beef with Belfort, and he just wanted to punish him.
Yeah. Speaking about punishment, there's a few fights I want to discuss later on, but let's go ahead and move on to Shogun versus Corey Anderson. Of course, it was a great fight. I thought that Anderson was doing his thing, Shogun was doing his, but it ended up being a split decision win call for Shogun, which I don't agree with. I thought it was 29-28 for Anderson. I felt that there was a little bit of a robbery there, but I definitely gave it to Anderson.
Yeah, see, I went the other way. I didn't think it was a robbery. I thought it was really close, but I gave it to Shogun for the knockdowns at the end of each round. But I could have went the other way too. It really was one of those fights for me that I just looked at and said, okay, all right, I guess we'll just go ahead and just leave it at that. Because it was really the first 2 rounds to me were closer. The third round was handily Corey Anderson, in my opinion. And I'm not saying that Corey Anderson didn't have big moments in the first 2 rounds, but the knockdowns by Shogun, I think, is what gave him those rounds. The first round, for sure, he looked really wobbled and stuff. The second round, we don't know what would have happened with the knockdown. So that's kind of the round for me that is kind of your wobbly round of who you pick.
Yeah, I thought he outpointed Shogun in that second round. But I chalk it up to it being in Brazil, to be honest, with the decisions. So, I mean, it's par for the course out there. It kind of happens this way most of the time when they fight out there anyway.
Yeah, even though I thought he won the fight, he didn't look great. He beat a guy. A lot of things we talked about and I wrote about, which was, this is going to be about, can Shogun Rua fight still with these guys, not just veterans, but up-and-comers, and can Corey Anderson finally get a name win?
Yeah.
And I realize you feel that Corey Anderson got robbed of that name win, so we'll just go ahead and say that he got that name win for you. For me, Shogun Rua was able to compete with an up-and-comer, but he didn't look great.
Yeah.
And so to me, I say just hang him up if I'm Shogun. And I rarely say that about fighters, of course, but I don't know who you give him next for Shogun. I really don't.
Yeah, because I want to add to that Corey Anderson's never looked fantastic to me anyway.
Right.
And
mostly decisions, I think, Jay.
And he didn't look great last night either. But I'm just saying, and robbery is a little strong of a word. I shouldn't have said robbery because it was just one of those wins that, yes, it was close, but I thought that it should have went the other way. But Corey Anderson, this guy, I don't even know where he goes next, to be honest. He's going to continue getting wins over no-name guys, decision wins. So I don't know. And as for Shogun, I agree with you. I think that I thought it was his time to leave a year ago.
Yeah, well, it was a perfect setup for him to go ahead and retire in front of all his fans on a win, in that big soccer stadium. What a way to go out. But sometimes we think of these things just from our perspective, not because we may not have that fighter's heart, that fighter's courage that they want to continue to go on. But
or that money ahead, or that money dangling in front of us, right?
Well, what do these guys do after they hang it up? Of course, Shogun Rua is a legend, so he's going to be fine no matter what. He can open a gym or teach or whatever. He's going to be okay. But I brought up Shogun Rua, who's he fight next? You brought up Corey Anderson, who's he fight next? To me, to answer your question for Corey Anderson I don't know, and I don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not trying to poo-poo Anderson. What I mean by that is that we'll see what happens. They'll give him some guy, and we'll see how he moves on from there.
And to answer you about Shogun, I don't care either.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I just got to give it right back with him. It just, to me, with either of these guys, it doesn't matter. They're irrelevant in their division. I thought that the Damian Maia Matt Brown fight should have been on this card, even over them. You know?
Yeah,
and we touched on that before as well, I believe. So
yeah, we talked about that when we were calling the fights in our last podcast.
Yeah,
we're going to talk about that for sure.
Oh, definitely.
But I do want to say that the one fight out there that might be interesting is the fight that was set up a while ago, but I don't know if Shogun got hurt or Evans got hurt. But the Shogun fight versus Rashad Evans. Now, Rashad Evans hasn't looked great either in a while. But maybe that's the fight to put together. If you're the UFC, you've got two former champs. You've got two guys that that people know. I'm not saying I'd be excited about it.
No.
I'm just saying that might be the way to go if these two guys are going to continue to fight. Although I do know that Evans is thinking about going to 185.
Mike, you've literally made me cringe when you announced that or tried to say that should be the fight that should be put together. I do not want to see Rashad Evans back in that cage. I just don't. Let's just go ahead and move on from here, Mike. We had Cyborg making her UFC debut at 140 pounds against a woman that had no business of being there against her. And of course, that was Leslie Smith, who is now 8-7-1.
Yeah.
What? I mean, I understand that this fight was brought up to other fighters and other fighters turned it down. But Leslie Smith, of course, jumped at it. And I know why. I mean, it's a huge stage. It's a big fight card that would be watched by many. But, wow, we knew this was coming. We knew it was going to be a first-round stoppage.
Yeah, I certainly agree. And it really showed casual fans and fans that haven't seen a lot of Cyborg's fights, what she's all about. And it came quick. It came, basically in a minute, and she just put it on Leslie Smith. Jay, I had a problem with the stoppage. Did you? Let me rephrase that. I thought it was a quick stoppage. I think that Leslie Smith was probably still going to lose, and she might have gotten finished in the next 10 seconds. But I thought it was, when it happened, I said, oh, that's a bad stoppage. And then, of course, she herself, and any fighter will do this, obviously, I realize this, but jumped up and said, this is bull S or whatever. Yeah. And I agreed with her. I let her have her time. I just thought it was I'll say it was a quick stoppage, not a bad stoppage.
I agree with that, but did I have any problem with it, with them actually stopping it? No, I didn't, because I wanted to see that fight just over with. I knew it was going to be a bloodbath, and
Yeah.
I just felt that this does showcase Cyborg in a way, but then it doesn't. There wasn't any real competition there against her to really showcase her skills. It just showed that she's a big, strong woman, and she's going to, KO this poor girl who had no business to be in there.
Yeah, it's basically Leslie Smith is a way worse Cyborg. She's a striker. She has a horrible record, and she likes to throw.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Cyborg is, only it's the opposite. She likes to throw. She's got a great record, and she knocks people out. If they would have put her in against a wrestler, against somebody who is more well-rounded, I'm talking about Cyborg, of course, it would have been a different story.
Yeah.
To me, I think it would have been interesting to see her fight Sarah McMahon. Now, I don't know if they asked Sarah McMahon or not, but that's somebody who has at least a skill that might give her problems.
Yeah.
But, I still think that that Miesha Tate might be able to beat Cyborg if they went down to 135. I don't want to see Cyborg at 135 because she's just too big in her frame. But she can make it. She weighed in at 139, and that was a statement to me that for this this catch weight at 140, she weighed in at 139. And you guys know out there, the bantamweight division is 135, but you get a pound grace. So 136. So she was three pounds away from the bantamweight division. And Jay, here's the problem. She still, after the fight, just wants to defend in Invicta and only wants to do catch weights in the UFC.
Yes.
That's very disheartening to me. What do you think?
Yeah, very much so. I was going to bring that up. Here's the thing, though, about her going to 135. All she has to do is stay off the roids and do more cardio, less strength training. That's it. And she can make it to 135. I guarantee you. The problem here is she doesn't want to do all that. I don't know about the roids thing, okay? I know she was busted for it before, but I think hopefully she's been off them. And about that situation with her not wanting to go down to 135 and just wanting to do catch weights now, she's announced that. It's ridiculous. It makes no sense. We don't want to see her to catch weight. We don't. Right. I don't. I want to see her go for a belt. I want to see these fights mean something, and they mean nothing to me at 140. So
yeah, catch weights are for, the two champs or two great fighters,
super fights.
That are in two different divisions that are close.
Yeah,
not just hey, I'm the champ over in this organization, whether the UFC owns that organization or not, and I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to fight and then go back over there. That's not what it's done for.
Yep.
It's just really odd.
Yeah, that just tells me that she wants her cake and eat it too. She wants to keep her belted at Invicta, and she doesn't want these fights to really mean much of anything at 140. She just wants to showcase her skills, I guess, with the UFC and make that money. And what you brought up about Miesha is very true, though. Her fighting somebody like Miesha would be awesome, but she's not going to do it.
Yeah, it's something that I wish we got to see, but something I've said in previous podcasts, and I think you agreed with me, which is Cyborg's irrelevant. She really is. When history goes on 20 years from now, Cyborg will be that person that just, she fought a lot of great people, but she never really fought in the UFC. And I realized she fought in the UFC yesterday. Yep. But she never fought the greatest.
Yeah, she fought a girl that was 8-6-1.
Yeah, she's not going to be relevant in 20 years the way Miesha Tate's going to be. Even Marlos Kunin and Bellator or some of these other girls. She's just going to be that weird. I don't mean she's weird personally, but just that weird anomaly.
Yep.
That what could have happened if.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And interesting,
it's kind of angering.
Yeah, interestingly enough, Leslie Smith was a hometown girl. I guess she's from Pleasant Hill, California.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't realize, I didn't know that until it was said on the broadcast. So that was pretty cool. Too bad she didn't win that fight. It would have been sweet.
Yeah, if you guys don't know, me and Jay are both from the California Bay Area.
Yeah.
I moved on a little bit to near Sacramento. But yeah, so that was pretty cool to see some people from our
area.
Digs.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go ahead and move on.
Brian Barberina was a good scrap. But
Barberina, it was a decent fight. Go ahead and run that down if you want to. Break that down a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not going to get too in-depth. It was just a good scrap between Brian Barberina, who's mostly known for the guy who beat Sage Northcutt, and Warley Alves, who I believe was the winner of one of the Brazilian Ultimate Fighters. And people were saying that Brian Barberena, this was his fighting Wally Alves was his comeuppance for beating Sage Northcutt and destroying the Star. But
Wow.
whether that's here or there, Brian Barberena got in there, got in a good scrap, and won on the cards 29-28. And it was just a good back and forth affair. That's all I pretty much got to say. And that should have been the Damian Maia Matt Brown fight to kick off the card.
Yeah,
So,
Let's go ahead and talk about that. Damian
exactly.
Maia,
That's my
Matt
segue
Brown.
for you, my friend.
Yeah, Matt Brown, Damian Maia. I'm very disappointed in this fight. This is the first time I've ever watched a Matt Brown fight that was actually boring. And I hate to say that. Matt Brown, hey, he's still the man. I love to watch Matt Brown. Last night, what we saw was a Damian Maia who, of course, is very skillful with his BJJ, but you know what? He channeled John Fitch and just basically held the guy for 3 rounds. And it was really infuriating. I was bored. I was bored. When Matt Brown here's the thing that really upset me about this. I love a good ground game, but I don't like it when somebody just hangs out on somebody's back for 3 rounds. And that's what it was. That's what it felt like. This was more a testament to Damian Maia not pulling the trigger fast enough, more than it was Matt Brown being a great defensive guru, because Matt Brown was looking up at the clock so many times, his chin clearly up in the air, ready for the taking. And he was even looking at the ref several times, like, are you going to stop this? Are you going to stand us or what? And I really felt that Damian Maia it was almost like he was toying with him or something. It was boring. I don't know.
Yeah, I saw it kind of the opposite way. Damian Maia got the rear naked choke in the 3rd round finally. He actually finished it, unlike Jake Shields and
John Fitch. Yeah.
Yeah, so Jake Shields and who's the other guy you brought up?
John Fitch.
John Fitch, yeah. But it was a long fight, Jay. I agree with you there. And he would, but Damian Maia, I mean, he would do great stuff like just grab his ankle and pull him against the cage and get on top. It was not the Damian Maia we know usually, because usually he finishes you in the 1st or 2nd once he gets a hold of you. But to me, and this is one of the times me and Jay didn't really text back and forth during the fights, is I looked at it as Matt Brown being an amazing fight by Matt Brown, because I picked Matt Brown to be submitted in the 1st or 2nd round. I picked Damian Maia to finish this for a few reasons. One, Maia, he's just one of the best guys on the ground, and number 2, Matt Brown he always falters against really good guys. He's not quite the Ricardo Lamas of the welterweight division, because he's an exciting fighter and he's just an amazing dude in general. But he falters against the top guys. And for Matt Brown to go almost all 3 rounds with Damian Maia says something to me about Matt Brown, more than Damian Maia. But Damian Maia got the win, and outside of Wonderboy Thompson, I think Maia should win the fight.
Well,
should go for the title.
See, for me, it was more of Matt Brown just. You know what? He couldn't do anything against the BJJ master. He couldn't get out. He's got that.
But that's his fault.
Body lock. He's got that body lock on him. You're not going to be able to spin around on that. I understand that. But Damian Maia, to me, being a BJJ master, should have been able to pull the trigger and sink in that choke a lot sooner than the end of the 3rd round.
Matt Brown had a hold of his hand. He's doing such good handwork. Good, grabbing the arm and stuff like that. It was just one of those things that, like, it's a stalemate. And for me, Matt Brown to get as far as he did, and Maia to finally get the choke, to me said something about both guys. And I thought it really showed both guys in a good light.
Let me go ahead and ask you this: if it was a stalemate, as you put it, why didn't they stand it up in the first 2 rounds?
Well, what I mean by a stalemate is that basically, you've got one guy who's got position. You're not going to stand it up, but he hasn't gotten quite, under the chin or something like that. It's like taking somebody's back or getting side mount or something like that. And, there were some punches landed by Damian Maia, but most of those punches were just to kind of get Matt Brown to let go of his hand so he could grab him. Yeah. Now, I'll give you this then. I mean, I'll give you a scenario. If this went to the cards, and was Damian Maia Matt Brown and nothing happened, then I'd have a little bit more to say about Damian Maia's performance. But he got the submission, and the way I had looked at it is that Matt Brown defended very, very well, but he got the submission. And so that's kind of how I looked at it. And for me, Matt Brown's a fantastic fighter. I'm not saying you don't think he is, because we obviously both agree about that. But to me, it was Matt Brown just doing a heck of a job. And I don't like guys looking at refs. How about you just get out of the just get out. If you can't get out, then you suck at that.
Yeah.
And you need to get better at it.
Well,
I'll tell you right now, if I'm going to fight some guy, I'm not going to have a ref to look at, because I'm going to get my butt kicked because I don't train. So you need to train to get out of that, or do something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
Just don't complain. Just don't complain about it.
That's true. But at the same time, when you have a BJJ master with a body lock on you, you're not going to be able to get out of that. You're going to just have to sit there and ride it out. And that was my big problem with the first 2 rounds, especially, and even the third. He got the win at the end of the third. To me, there was so many times I was watching as they were doing their, Maia's hitting him, Maia's trying to get his arm under the chin. You've got Matt Brown grabbing his hands and everything. I'm watching this, and there were several times in those first 2 rounds you can see, like, okay, you can get him now. You can put it under his chin now. And I know I realize I'm not the guy fighting. I'm just an idiot at home watching on the couch. But there was so many times I could have seen a BJJ master get Matt Brown and finish him within those first 2 rounds, and it just irritated me. But you know what, Damian Maia won. I agree, he's great at what he does, but what's going to happen next for Damian Maia? I mean, you put him up against he goes for the belt, okay? Is he just going to cherry pick guys and bring them to the ground and lay on them or hold them there for a while? What's his game plan? Is he going to continue to do this?
Well, first of all, I want to see if you want to take back that comment about John Fitch and Jake Shields, because that's really, really mean. But if you still believe it, I'll let it go.
Well, he did at least finish somebody, but
okay, there you go. All right.
So,
that's just a joke.
It takes a while. Yeah, I know.
But no, I mean, let's not forget this guy's career. This was one fight, and it was against Matt freaking Brown. I mean, Damian Maia has been like schooling fools lately. He's like, I don't know if he's like on an 8-fight win streak or close to that. He's been submitting people. Submitted Matt Brown, submitted Neil Magny. He's been submitting other guys as well. I don't have the names in front of me, but I mean, he's been beating people. This guy's legit. It's not like he's like Jake Shields or
I know he's legit at what he does.
Where he gets there and he doesn't finish. So I you say cherry pick, and man, I understand what you're saying, but if you just take the bad taste of that fight out of your mouth or his mouth or whoever's mouth, I mean, the pick he did on Matt Brown was fantastic. And then usually when he gets those positions, it's lights out. I mean, it's tapping out. So I still think he does beat the champ Robbie Lawler. I think he'll be able to get him on the ground. The only problem I think he has against Lawler is Lawler punches hard. And so if he does get him up against the fence, watch out, because Matt Brown can hit hard, but Robbie Lawler hits way harder, and he could hurt him and finish him.
I agree with you 100%. That's my point, though. Do we really want a champion in Damian Maia that fights the way he does? I don't. I don't want to see a guy. I don't want to see a guy who just gets on people and gets on their backs and
and finishes them.
Well,
in all of his fights, but this last one,
he should have finished Matt Brown a lot faster. I still say that.
But that was just this one fight, Jay. Is Matt Brown crap?
But he did. Crap. But let's get back. He's on a 5-win streak. 3 of those are decision wins, Mike. 3 of them. Only 2 of them are submissions. So
who did he fight?
Okay, he fought Alexander Yakovlev. I don't know who that is.
Not a clue. So don't worry about that.
And he got a decision win against him. Ryan LaFleur, a decision win against Ryan LaFleur.
I know that guy, but not great.
Not great at all.
Yeah.
He got a decision win against Gunnar Nelson. Good guy.
Oh, that was the other one, Gunnar Nelson.
Yeah, decision win. Neil Magny, he submitted Neil, but Neil is a striker. To me, Matt Brown and Neil are strikers. And for him to not get
to
Matt
finish
Brown.
both guys?
No, not to finish him faster than the end of the third is ridiculous. I don't know. He had him.
I guess we won't probably be able to agree on this, but I guess I'll do my one last
If he
thing.
did, if he did
your last thing. And to me, it's just that Damian Maia's finished his last. Well, I thought he finished Gunner, but he did basically. What he did to Gunner, Jay? Would you say the same thing about Matt Brown? Did he do to Matt Brown what he did to Gunner? Because I see those as two different things. I think he decimated Gunner, but he didn't decimate Matt Brown. To give you a little agreement to your point of view,
not at all.
I thought Matt Brown held his own way better than Gunnar Nelson.
Well, yeah, I guess. I guess that's just one we're just gonna have to agree to disagree for sure. What else we got, Mike? That's
pretty much it for the card, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go on to Bellator. Well, we're gonna have a healthy talk here also with Bellator. 154. Phil Davis versus King Mo Lal. Mike, I will start it off and just say that, yes, it went all 3 rounds. And yes, I believe King Mo won that fight. I don't think that Phil Davis should have got the decision win. I thought King Mo won that fight 29-28. What say you?
Well, I've got some stuff to say on the fight. Some of it is just going to be talk because that's what it is. It won't be anything, technical. Like technically, Phil Davis won the fight. But I think he won the fight. I think he won the second. He for sure won the third. I thought the first 2 were close. And here's what I say about some things won't be technical on what I'm going to say, and that is I think he won the fight overall if he were to use quote-unquote pride rules. I thought the first 2 were so close, and he almost got 2 submissions off in the third and hurt King Mo in the third. That to me, the fact that he got the win, and the fact that he was supposed to fight for the belt anyway, it didn't bother me. Well, I thought he won anyway, but so it wouldn't even have bothered me, I guess, if I thought King Mo won the first 2 rounds. So that's kind of how I thought about it. I thought Mo won the first round. I thought Davis won the second round. Both were kind of close. Not close as in like one punch close, but they both didn't do a lot in the first round and second round. But man, Davis just basically wobbled him, got on top of him, almost got that Kimura, and people tapped that Kimura, and King Mo didn't. And he was able to jump on his back and almost, it looked like he was going to go for an arm bar, but went for the Kimura again. King Mo, being the former Strikeforce champ he is, got out of that again. I think I blame, we talked about, Damian Maia in the last fight. I blame King Mo for not letting the punches go, for not pulling the trigger. King Mo has become a guy that beats everybody who's not a name, but can't beat the names, Jay. So I know there's a few things I just rattled off. So go ahead and take either ones as you want, but that's my thoughts on the fight.
Yeah, I totally believe that he won the first 2 rounds. Hands down, I thought King Mo won those first 2 rounds. The third round, it was close there, but I gave it to Phil. I had it 29-28. That's the way I scored it as it went along. And I was pulling for Phil Davis. That's the thing. So if anybody thinks that, it's because I'm a King Mo fan, well, I'm more of a fan of Phil Davis. And I thought Phil Davis was going to just run through King Mo, and it didn't happen. I don't understand why the judges saw it the way they did, but they did, and Phil Davis won. I guess
the second round, I mean, I didn't watch it more than once, but the second round to me, it just seemed like Phil Davis, he had the octagon control. He was moving forward. They were both throwing punches and landing. I think it came down to the kicks, kind of the push kicks that were landing on maybe that made more of an imprint on me. Maybe that's what that other judge saw. I haven't even looked up to see what the sites have picked on that, because some people are saying that one way or the other. Some people are saying it's mostly Mo. So I'm going to look at the end of the podcast, see what some of the other sites are saying, like MMA Junkie and SureDog and stuff like that, what their guys thought. But like I said, I think the right guy got it.
Well, see, and then I see it the opposite way too, where you said that King Mo wasn't the one that was pulling the trigger. I thought the same thing of Phil Davis. I thought that Phil Davis wasn't really pulling the trigger, especially after the Kimura attempt. That was like the only time that he tried to finish the fight. After that, it was I don't know. It was not a very good fight for either, but it was just one of those fights that, they traded back and forth a little bit, and it was more of like a sparring match almost, to be honest.
Well, let me then comment on the whole pulling the trigger. I think that Davis did pull the trigger. It's just that he wasn't great at it. Mo defended like at least 3 or 4 takedown attempts. And Mo should be, get applauded for that. And I do think that Davis, in hindsight, probably shouldn't have taken him down when he had him wobbled in the third. He maybe could have picked him apart and finished him, on his feet when Mo was wobbled, but he decided to take him down.
I would agree with that.
And to me, a lot of fighters are going to go for their quote unquote bread and butter, and his is that Kimura. And I think he probably thought he had him wobbled enough to grab it. But King Mo is a strong fighter and a good dude, and he wasn't having it. So I was let down by the fight.
I definitely was. Yeah. I was let down by both fighters, to be honest.
Yeah, it was weird because it was kind of like, I don't know. Basically, Phil Davis came into Bellator and just ran through those two guys in the Dynamite tournament. And King Mo hasn't looked that great in Bellator. I mean, his last 3 fights were in Risen, where he beat a bunch of no names and good form. He knocked 2 of those guys out in 3 days. And I'm not saying that King Mo isn't a great fighter. Just I need to see him start beating guys. I mean, I think he should have got the nod against Rampage Jackson in the first pay-per-view that Bellator put out. I think he should have won that fight. And what I mean by that is I think he did win that fight. But name a name win that King Mo has done that has with all his talking. Part of it for me is that he talks all the time now, but he's not backing it up. In Strikeforce and before Strikeforce, when he was fighting in Asia, I can understand the talk and the swagger. I don't understand the talk and the swagger now.
Well, I'll just go ahead and say, we'll agree to disagree on this one too. I felt he won the fight last night.
Well, who do you think Mo should fight next?
I think, honestly,
pick your has-been fighter, Jay.
No. I think he should fight the loser of the championship bout.
Actually, that's a
McGeary.
McGeary
or Phil Davis, and whoever wins there then fights for the championship belt again. Because
that's perfect.
I don't see anybody else in that division, in that organization, actually deserving of that belt besides those 3 right now.
Yeah, that's perfect. I completely agree, because the fight was close, and a lot of people, including yourself, thought Mo won. So why not, give him the loser of the fight, and then he fights for the title? Completely agree.
Yeah, and he was on a 7-fight win streak, by the way, King Mo, before this loss.
Yeah, I mean, but he hasn't been winning. But he had 3 just recently, and the 4 before that. I mean, who did he beat? It's tough to say because it's Bellator, obviously. But
he beat Linton Vassell, Czech Congo, Brett McDermott. I mean, Brett McDermott was part of that whole Risen thing.
Yeah, Czech Congo, I think, is a legitimate win. Well, I shouldn't say legitimate. I think it's a good win for him. He's heavyweight, and he's basically a light heavyweight and beat a heavyweight guy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But, anyway, but that, there wasn't nothing else I really wanted to touch on with that Bellator card, unless you did.
No, the card was cursed.
All right, so UFC Fight Night 87. Let's go ahead and jump into that, Mike.
Yeah, so this was a couple of weeks ago, but we hadn't yet been able to talk about the endings and what went on. Alistair Overeem defeated Andrei Arlovsky, as you guys know. Jay and we picked that very easily, as most people did. We're not, Svengalis on that kind of thing. It was round 2, really early on. TKO punches. It's just both these guys are heavy punchers, but Overeem's just been on a roll.
Yeah. I definitely picked that one and the round as well. I just kind of figured that would happen. Andrei Arlovsky is just not who he once was, and I think it's probably about time for him to exit the arena. I don't know. That's just my thoughts.
Keep him for European cards,
But as for Overeem, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm actually starting to like some of his fights of late. It just seems that he's becoming a fighter that's enjoyable to watch. I really want to see him fight next against Stipe. I think that'll be a great fight. Like you, I think Stipe will still win that fight, but I think that Overeem's got something for him. I think that it's not going to be as easy as you think it is.
Yeah, and Overeem is part of it could be because Overeem's been training at Team Jackson for the last year or two.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully, nobody gets hurt. Hopefully, it just runs smoothly because everybody keeps getting hurt in the heavyweight division, and it's getting annoying. So,
definitely. So we had we'll move on from that fight. We had Stefan Struve against Bigfoot Silva too.
Yes,
that shocked us. That. Yes, completely wrong. Stefan Struve, while he didn't fight tall, he didn't do that yet, but he didn't need to. He did need to. He knocked out Bigfoot Silva, and we didn't see that coming. We thought it was going to be the opposite way. And Bigfoot sporting a new do and beard. What's up with that?
I thought he looked good.
I thought he looked good too.
Look like a weirdo. He looked like a regular dude who's got gigantism.
Wow. Yeah, so, he was looking good, but that's about it for Bigfoot. He didn't look good.
Just the new beard and the hair?
Yeah, the fight game wasn't good at all. But, we expected them to be both kind of not good, but Stefan Struve was the better of the two. So he won. Yeah,
I just want to quickly recount this one because the Overeem fight, it was just kind of a regular knockout. Nothing really super great in my opinion. But with the Struve Silva fight, it was 16 seconds long. For some reason, Antonio Silva rushed Struve, maybe to get inside of his reach. I don't know, but it was like as soon as the bell went off, he was like a bull and bull rushed him. And to Struve's credit, man, he landed a couple of rights on the way on his way in.
Yeah.
And when he got pushed up against the fence, he was kind of Bigfoot was kind of hurt already, but then he started landing those elbows to the head, and that was all she wrote. Kind of like the elbows that Travis Brown did to my man Josh Barnett, and that was it. That's all she wrote.
Yeah, and you would think that Verdum would have learned from this Bigfoot fight about rushing in. It's crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so 16 seconds long for that fight, and just proved us wrong for our picks on that fight. So
yeah, it's that's what makes this sport so crazy, great, and sometimes disheartening is that we think fighters are going to fight a certain way, the way we think they should, and maybe even the way the coaches think they should, and they go and do something like that.
Let's go on to the next fight, Mike. We had Albert Tumanov against Gunnar Nelson. It was a sub win for Gunnar. What do you have to say about this fight?
Well, they're both up and coming prospects, and it was a style versus style matchup, but Gunnar's style defeated. Gunnar being a submission guy versus Albert Tumanov, who's a fantastic striker, knockout guy. And Nelson was just better at his style than Tumanov was at his. And that's where the rear naked choke came in round two. Beautiful fight, really, by both the guys. But Gunnar Nelson looked great, coming off the loss to Maia. He fought a guy that is a prospect and not, a legitimate contender yet, as Maia was. So it was a good fight. I liked it.
Yeah, it definitely was. And I think that wasn't Connor training with Gunnar before this fight?
Well, yeah, Gunnar's been a part of that camp for at least 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. Well, it seemed like his stance and his posture was very Connor-like in a way, the way he was fighting on his feet anyway.
It looks very similar. I'm struggling to remember if Nelson has always done that or not, because the first thing that comes to my mind is that he's a submission guy.
Yeah, but I think he has, but it's just one of those things. Maybe that's the way their camp kind of trains their fighters. Yeah. I don't know, but anyway, Gunnar looked great. And what do we say for him next? I mean, what's going to happen for him?
He's not quite there at the top 10, but maybe give him a top 10 guy that maybe at the very end of the top 10.
Yeah,
he's a welterweight. So I'm trying to think of maybe some names to give him, but he just lost 2 fights ago, so you can either give him a fight that maybe will build him up a little more to fight a top 10 guy, or just continue to move him along. I don't have a name yet, Jay, that I can think of offhand.
What about well, you got Matt Brown.
That sounds great. The only problem with that though is that the UFC likes to put losers versus losers and winners versus winners. They do sometimes break that, which I think should be done.
Okay, well then you have Neil Magny.
That's even better. I love that fight.
Yeah, that sounds good. And then you still have Dong Young Kim, who's won his last fight.
I'm not sure what's going on with him, but I believe the same thing that happened to Korean Zombie is happening to Dong Young Kim. He's actually in the military.
Oh,
in South Korea, you have to serve. It's mandatory to serve.
That's right.
Like 2 or 3 years, I think, in their military. And I believe now it's kind of funny, but Korean Zombie just got out, and so now it looks like Kim is in.
Well,
so.
If you look at it this way, Gunnar Nelson didn't really get hurt during that fight. Matt Brown didn't either. Matt Brown fought last night, and he's fine. I think that would be a better fight, definitely. But Neil Magny's been okay for a while now. I think that one would be an awesome fight too.
Yeah, well, I brought up the rankings, but Magny's been on fire. Well,
yeah,
he had
I
that
know
loss,
he's been
but he's at 7, and I'd be worried about having him lose and losing a contender.
But even if he
I
lost,
like the fight.
Yeah, but even if he lost against a guy like Gunnar, I don't think that's a bad thing. Gunnar looked good his last fight. And I know it was against a guy that wasn't really top ranked or anything, but
right.
I don't know. I don't know what you would do there if. But
if I'm the UFC and I go by how they go, which is winner versus winner, loser versus loser, I've got to have Nelson versus a winner. And I think Gastelum lost. Story, I think he's fighting soon. Safadine's fighting soon. Kim's gone.
And
Matt Brown lost.
And Safadine ranks underneath him, so
yeah.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, I think maybe they just give him a guy that they can beat. That he can beat. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on from there, Mike. Anything else you want to discuss on that card?
No, we just got some news and fight picks, I think, right now.
Well, let's go ahead and get into some news, Mike.
News Corner.
What have you got for us?
We've got some good stuff coming up. One of the things we have going on for people who out there, big fans of Marlon Moraes like I am, and Lance Palmer out of Team Alpha Mill. Basically, Marlon Moraes versus Josh Hill 2 and Alexandria Almeida versus Lance Palmer in an immediate rematch will be happening at WSOF 32. These are both for the titles, for bantamweight title and featherweight title. Just really quickly, since WSOF is not as big as the others, Moraes has been destroying guys, obviously. So Josh Hill is now going to get a second chance to fight him. Hill has only one loss. He's 14-1. That loss was to Moraes. Was a unanimous decision loss. But just really quickly, I'll just pick Moraes again. The Alexandria Almeida Palmer fight, which is an immediate rematch. Palmer held the title for a couple of fights. Almeida took it from him in a close decision. This is kind of a sign of that WSF is still growing and doing what they need to get fans. Since it was a close fight and there's really nobody up in the queue to fight Almeida, they're just going to run it back again with Palmer. And so I'm actually really interested to see both of those fights.
Yeah, definitely. Marlon Moraes is a great fighter to watch. The best guy to watch in that organization anyway. I like him a lot.
Yeah, the question I have before we kind of move on, Jay, unless you want to talk about Almeida and Palmer, is we discussed what's next for Moraes. He said he'd fight outside of his weight class. He said he'd do whatever, and well, he's not fighting outside of his weight class. I wonder if he has a change of heart or if people just don't want to fight him at 145 or 155.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. And then TJ Dillashaw versus Rafael Assunção 2 will be at UFC 200. That will be a prelim. I don't know if you guys noticed on the broadcast last night for UFC 198, but 4 fights are going to be on UFC 200 main card because there's 3 title fights, I guess. First time I've seen 4 fights on a main card, in years.
Yeah.
But that's what's going to happen when you have, a potential 15 rounds in 3 fights. Jay, Rafael Assunção got the win their first time, but it was kind of, a lot of people thought TJ won that fight. This is before TJ was TJ, and Rafael is still Rafael.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
It was a split decision win, and like you said, TJ wasn't the guy we know now. I think TJ destroys him now, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that same thing.
Yeah, this was 2 years ago. I mean, almost 3 years ago, to be honest. It's ridiculous.
This is before Bang Ludwig, before all that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think TJ destroys him, and we will get the definitive win there for TJ against the Sun Sao. So
yeah, I agree.
Anyway,
I think it might still be it's gonna be 3 rounds, so I'm thinking it's probably going to be by decision. I'm
surprised they're putting that fight together, to be honest. Why a Sun Sao, you know?
Well, Sun Sao's he's on a really long winning streak. It's just he hasn't fought in a while because he keeps getting injured. And he also has that win over TJ. So he was going to be fighting TJ at least a couple of times already, but he kept getting hurt. So it makes some sense when you look at it from that point of view. But
the reason why I ask is because his last fight was against Brian Caraway, and he won by decision.
Yeah, but he's got the wins, and he's up there in the queue and in the moving up and higher, and he's got that win. I certainly understand what you're saying when you talk about level of competition that Sal has had.
Yeah.
The competition is nowhere near what TJ's been doing lately.
He's got 7 wins from a bunch of guys that that are not ranked. Let's just say it nicely, okay? They're not ranked.
Unranked guys.
Yeah. Except for TJ.
So that's going to be a prelim.
Yeah, but I think at the time TJ wasn't even ranked top 10.
Yeah, he had just come off the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah. So it's one of those things. Maybe it's a TJ showcase fight.
Yeah, because really think about it. I don't know how big of a draw he is, but I still find him to be an exciting guy. Whether you think he's a snake in the grass or not, or whatever people say about him. But this is a fight he can win, and a fight that will finally give a Sun Sao maybe not. It will probably give him a title shot if he wins. And maybe TJ gets a title shot if he beats a Sun Sao. I'm not sure. Some other news at UFC on Fox 20. It looks like it's going to be Holly Holm versus Valentina Shevchenko in the main event. Anthony Johnson versus Glover Teixeira, and Edson Barboza versus Gilbert Melendez. Now, those 3 fights have not yet specifically been official yet, but they're close to it according to the UFC.
Those are great.
Go ahead, Jay.
Those are great fights, especially Anthony Johnson, Teixeira, and Edson Barboza, Melendez. Those 2 fights, fantastic.
Yeah, and I also like the Holly Holm Valentina Shevchenko fight because Shevchenko's 12-2. She's got 4 TKOs, but she's a kickboxer. She's won titles in kickboxing. She doesn't have a great record, it's true. When in the UFC, she's 1-1. She just lost to Nunez, but she beat Sarah Kaufman.
But the matchup is good. The style matchup is good.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm looking forward to that. Johnson Glover Teixeira. If you don't like this fight, you don't like MMA. Edson Barboza, Gilbert Melendez. Gilbert's first fight since
I got to do it. I got to do it, Mike. I got to do it. I know these are just rumored, but who would you pick? Anthony Johnson or Glover Teixeira? Who wins that fight?
Anthony Johnson, simply because he's a little more athletic.
Yeah, I'll say Anthony Johnson because I think he's a little faster. I guess more athletic. True. Edson Barboza.
When I say athletic, I mean faster and more movement and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. Barboza Melendez. I'm going Barboza all day. All day.
I don't know who to pick quite yet, but I'm leaning towards Barboza for sure. Melendez is his first fight since getting popped for steroids. He's been out for a year. He's going to have something to prove, obviously. But Edson Barboza looked great against Pettis. And I know he's been off and on lately, but man, does he look good on his feet.
And what about?
I'm not going to pick quite yet, but if you make me pick, I'm going to lean towards Barboza.
And what about the 4 guys that had just lost just this weekend that are from the Diaz camp?
Oh, yeah, I heard about that.
Wow. So, I don't think that camp's doing too well outside of Nate. But Melendez, I just don't see. I've never seen him as a fantastic fighter. I think he's a good fighter, a very good fighter, but he's not a great. He's not a top 5 guy to me. I think Barboza's better than he is. Barboza's going to leg kick him.
I agree with your sentiments, obviously, on Melendez. We've talked about in the past, and I'm fine always bringing it up. I was just listening to the Sherdog, one of the Sherdog programs, and they were talking about how, if Melendez would have beat Pettis, he would have been the best lightweight champ, the best lightweight fighter in the world. And I was like, really?
On roids? On roids?
Exactly. I don't quite understand it. He's a fine fighter and an excellent fighter, but now he's finally in with the big boys in the UFC, and his record hasn't looked that great, and he hasn't looked that great, and he gets popped for steroids. So, but I will say that I do believe that Melendez, he's one step above a grinder. He's good at wrestling. He's pretty good at striking, and he's not a horrible fighter, but
No,
agree.
he's
I don't
not
understand
horrible.
it.
He's not horrible at all. That's not what I'm getting
Yeah.
at. But I'm just saying, go look at his record and look at the guys he's faced and his outside of Ben Henderson, Eddie Alvarez, which, by the way, he lost to.
Yeah.
It's just,
And Jay, those are the two guys that were the champs of their respective companies. That when people thought who is the better out of the non-UFC people.
They thought Melendez.
And he's lost to both of them. So.
Yeah, they used to say it was Gilbert Melendez. They used to say
Yeah.
Gilbert was the best, and he lost to Henderson, Alvarez, Pettis. He beat Diego Sanchez. And the Josh Thompson fight, I thought Josh Thompson won that fight back in Strikeforce. I remember that fight completely. Josh Thompson was robbed, people.
Yeah, it was a close fight. I still gave it to Melendez, but it was very close. And still, I mean, it's a close fight against Josh Thompson.
Yeah.
A couple years ago. Big fight. Jay, did you want to say anything else? I'm sorry,
No, nothing else, man. Let's just move on.
Yeah. So Robbie Lawler versus Tyrone Woodley is another one that's in the works. UFC 201. So finally getting to talk about some other fights post 200. That's a great fight. It's true I would have liked to have seen Wonder Boy fighting Lawler. But Tyrone Woodley's been around for a while. He's got some good wins. So quickly, I think I'm going to lean towards Lawler on this one, possibly. I just don't know.
Me too. It's the whole Tyron Woodley and gas factor. It's his cardio that just drains him. I mean,
and Lawler's the opposite.
Yeah. I got to go Lawler too at this point. But as that gets closer, we'll do our picks, of course. But I'm leaning Lawler for sure.
Then we got Tony. Great fight here, guys.
Yes.
Again, I just said if you don't like MMA, you don't like Johnson versus Teixeira. This is a little bit of a smaller scale, quite literally. Tony Ferguson versus Michael Chiesa is going to headline UFC Fight Night 81. Both former Ultimate Fighter guys. Both guys continuously on the come up. Ferguson's 10-1 in the UFC, 7 in a row. He's beat Barbosa and Thompson in his last fight. Forced Thompson to leave for Bellator, basically. Chiesa's 7-2 with 6 in a row, but he'd be more like he'd be 6. I'm sorry, 5 in a row. But he would be 6 in a row if the cut against Lozon that he received from Lozon in their fight, if they wouldn't have stopped that fight, it would be 6 in a row. So he was handily winning that fight. He just beat Dariush and Jim Miller. So this is going to be a fantastic fight, Jay.
Yeah, it definitely will. But I think Tony Ferguson's going to beat Michael Chiesa. I think he's going to destroy him.
You really think so?
Yeah.
The way I'm looking at it right now,
Tony's
now
going
this
to
is going to be the headliner. This is going to be the main event, so it's 5 rounds. I think it's going to take to the 4th or the 5th, probably the 4th, for Ferguson to finally finish him. So I do believe he's going to finish Chiesa. I think Chiesa just hasn't fought as many people yet, hasn't cut his teeth long enough.
No,
and Ferguson is just so much better.
I think Tony could possibly do it by the end of the second. I think he could finish Michael. I think Tony is just a beast, absolute beast. Michael Chiesa hasn't faced anybody like Tony, not yet.
We'll see what happens with that. And guys, please, we're almost done with the news corner here, but just always give us a call or email us. Tell us what you think as well on this, and we'll certainly talk about it on the next shows. But basically, we also have Dennis Seaver is out against BJ Penn. Cole Miller is now in at UFC 199 to fight BJ Penn in his return fight. I've been a fan of Cole Miller. He just hasn't been. He's been around, just not on a lot of televised cards. If you don't know him, he's 21-9, 15 subs, 3 TKOs, so he's a really good submission guy. Got his big break in Tough 5. Oddly enough, was the opposite team of BJ Penn when he was coaching against Jens Pulver. I like this fight, Jay. This is, instead of just having a really good striker, a one-dimensional guy in Seaver taking on Penn, Penn's now going to fight a guy who's really well-rounded. What do you think?
Well, he's fighting a guy that, like you said, hasn't fought great competition. So this is better for Penn for sure. But jury's still out for me with Penn because I love BJ Penn. He was one of my guys back in the day. But I liked it when he retired, and I'm just unsure of him coming back. I really am. So I don't know, man.
Yeah, I kind of second that for sure. There's not much more he needs to do. Actually, there's nothing he needs to do.
No, he doesn't need to prove anything.
Yeah, Last thing I have, well, not the last thing, but one of the last few things I have is Joseph Benavidez and Henry Cejudo are going to coach Tough 24. What's interesting about that, and we talked about this earlier, I think, in a couple podcasts ago, or I might have just did it on Facebook. I'm not sure. But something that is new now is they're not just going to be coaching flyweights. They're going to be coaching champs from smaller promotions, flyweight champs from smaller promotions. And whoever wins that tournament will fight Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. Because, look, nobody has a chance against Johnson. He's destroyed everybody. So they're going to maybe hope for who was it that beat George St. Pierre? Matt Serra. They're hoping maybe for a Matt Serra. I don't know, like they did in Tough 4. And then Benavidez and Cejudo are going to fight at the co-main event in the finale as well.
Yeah, I think this is a great matchup, but Joseph Benavidez, I think, will still beat Henry Cejudo. From everything I've seen from Cejudo, I think Joseph's a better fighter.
I think so, too. It's co-main event, so it's not going to be 5 rounds. I think it's going to be another decision by Benavidez.
Could be, but I don't know. I think he has the strength to knock out Cejudo as well. So
for sure,
anything can happen.
Last couple of things we have here now. They just came across the wire last night and this morning. Congratulations to Big Nog for getting into the UFC Hall of Fame. I think he deserves it, mostly because of his work in Pride. But he was the interim champ for the UFC heavyweight division, and he's beat some decent guys there as well. So congratulations to him. Jay, you have anything to say on that?
No, congratulations. That's about it.
Yeah, he'll get his shine there at the UFC fan convention in July. Also, something a little bewildering to both Jay and I. Will Brooks has been cut from Bellator. He's been saying a lot against the promotion, and I agree with what he's been saying, but he's buying the hand that feeds him, so he's finished out his contract and they're not going to re-sign him. And they also stripped their heavyweight champ from his belt. They haven't cut him yet, but they did strip Minikov of his belt because, look, he doesn't want to defend it in Bellator. He'd rather just fight over in Russia. Yeah.
The Will Brooks thing really ticks me off, Mike.
Yeah.
Here's a guy who is your champ, by the way, and he's just an all-out beast of a champ, and you're going to cut him over some words he put out on Twitter that wasn't really all that bad. He was just basically talking about how Bellator basically cares more about these fighters they've brought in from these other organizations and stuff, and they're showcasing them more and stuff. It just makes no sense to me why you would cut one of your best fighters in your whole organization. I don't know. It's just crazy.
Yeah, and for me, it's interesting because even in the UFC, people give Dana White, I'll say this. Give Dana White credit that when he has a fighter that's really good, he'll let them say just close to anything and not cut them. And so I find it interesting that Scott Coker has released Will Brooks based off that. So hey, Will Brooks, come to the UFC. We'd love to see you there. So
yeah, definitely.
He deserves to be there anyway,
Yeah. I welcome him with open arms if he comes to the UFC for sure, man. I think he breaks into the top 10 quite quickly in the UFC, to be honest.
Yeah. The last thing I have was during Bellator last night, and that is Michael Chandler is going to be fighting Patricky Pitbull for the now vacant title. I don't really know why Patricky's fighting here, but Michael Chandler, I understand why. But that's going to be on down the line for the vacant title. Good for Chandler. He's been a company guy there. He deserves to be able to fight for the title, in my opinion. It's not his fault that Josh Thompson, fell out, but he's got two wins in a row now, and he's a former champ, so good for him.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a decent fight either way.
Yeah, they're both going to stand and bang probably.
We pick 'em.
All right, let's get into some picks, Mike. Let's go ahead and start with Bellator 155, I guess.
Yeah, that's this Friday, and Rafael Carvalho is going to defend his newly won middleweight belt against Melvin Manhoff. That's going to be a good fight. Then also we've got Pat Curran. He's fighting Georgi Karakarian. We've got Marcin Held, Dave Jansen too. That's basically going to be a number one contenders bout. And sadly, we won't see it on TV, but Marlos Kunin is fighting Alexis Dufresne. Julia Budd has got hurt, so it's no longer a title fight because Alexis Dufresne just doesn't have the record or the stuff to really if Conan wins, which he probably will, it just looks like a weird belt to win it off of, a person to win off of. So I will just say, picking for Carvalho, the guy hasn't lost since his first fight. He's 12-1, 10 KO TKOs. Just beat Brandon Halsley, that former champ. So he's been looking great. Melvin Manhoff, that guy's a pure striker, Jay. I'm picking Carvalho here because he's younger. He's got what it takes. And Manhoff, as decent as he's been looking, he's still getting up there.
Yeah, and with Carvalho, he's beat Brian Rogers, TKO'd him actually. So that was a good win, big win for him.
Yeah.
Beat Joe Schilling. That was a decision though, but he's fought some decent guys, and I think that he's got the better, more well-rounded game. So I'll go Carvalho too, and I'm thinking that he'll win probably. I don't know. I think he'll finish Manhoff, to be honest. Maybe by the beginning of the third somewhere.
I think I can go with that. I might even go the second round possibly.
By the end, of
you
the
bring
second.
up Joe Schilling, which is a good person to bring up. Joe Schilling may not have the best record when it comes to MMA, but he's one of the best kickboxers out there. And with Manhoff being one of the best kickboxers, Carvalho has seen that type of fighter already.
Yeah,
it's Schilling. So Pat Curran, Georgie Karakhanyan. Look, Curran, former champ, obviously of the featherweights, 21-7. Likes to bang, but's got more submissions. Got 7 submissions, 5 TKOs, but 2-3 in his last 5. Whereas Karakhanyan is 24-5 and 1. He's also got subs, 14 and 4 TKOs. Also lost 2 of his last 3. So this is it's not a showcase for Pat Curran, but this is basically Pat Curran has to have a name to keep him going.
But Pat Curran has to win this fight, in my opinion, too.
That's what I'm saying.
And I don't think he does. I mean, there's a look. He could win it, but it's not a guarantee, is what I'm saying. At this point, man,
I think Karakhanyan's more well-rounded.
Yeah, I might go for Karakhanyan on this fight, and that's saying something, I guess, because Pat Curran just seems to he's just not the guy he once was. Let's just say that.
Yeah, they both have something to prove because even Georgie Karakhanyan, he was in Bellator for a little bit, didn't have a great run, and went to the WSOF, and then now he's back in Bellator. So I'm gonna go ahead and go with Karakhanyan by decision because Pat Curran's problem is that he's a counter fighter, and if you don't give him what he wants, he won't throw very much, and I think that's where he's gonna lose the decision. Yeah,
I mean, he's lost to Patricio and Daniel Wetchel. Now he won against Emmanuel Sanchez, but who is that?
See, I think he's lost to Strauss also. I think Strauss, Pitbull, and Curran have all lost to each other and all beat each other. It just depends on how many times each they've either lost or beat each other. So that's kind of a round robin right there. But Pat Curran's slowing down. I just don't think he'll get it done.
Yeah.
Marcin Held versus Dave Jansen, 2. Their first fight was Bellator 93 and back in 2013. Jansen did win by unanimous decision. These guys are both fantastic submission artists. I didn't know Jansen too much. I knew Held. I think has been ever since I've seen him fight in Bellator. I think he's great. I'm going Held this time. I'm
going Held too.
But whoever wins this fight's gonna fight for the title.
Yeah, I'm going Held, and he'll probably end up submitting Jansen. So.
Yeah, Jansen's he's 20-3. He only lost to Brooks and Will Brooks in Bellator, but still, I mean, losing to Brooks is not bad. But I don't know a lot of names that he's beat. So
yeah, I'm going Held.
And I kind of just we already discussed Conan versus Dufresne, Jay, or at least I did. Did you want to go ahead and talk about that, or you want to keep going?
I think that Conan is probably going to win this one.
Yeah, Dufresne's 5-2, and Conan's 23-6.
She's a big time vet, so.
Oh yeah, exactly. So, our last card to talk about is going to be on Sunday, guys. So don't forget about that. It will be on Sunday, not Saturday. It's UFC Fight Night 88, and we're going to have some really good up and comers on this card, mostly. But there is a former champ. So we'll kick it off with the main event: Cody Garbrandt versus Thomas Almeida, and that's the main event. Renan Barão versus Jeremy Stephens is your co-main event. And sadly, on a Fight Pass prelim, we have Aljamain Sterling versus Brian Caraway. Smart business, obviously, as Jay's always talked about, and I agree with him. It's a smart move to put that on the Fight Pass prelim so that people will get it. I'm just kind of sad that some people will miss it now that Sterling has been re-signed to the promotion. Jay, Garbrandt, Almeida, both undefeated, both knockout kings. What are we thinking?
This fight is awesome.
Yeah.
These guys are both just awesome strikers. This is a hard fight for me to pick, to be honest.
It is.
Because I really like Garbrandt, but at the same time, I think Almeida has been looking phenomenal. I'm going to go with Almeida.
Yeah, it's Almeida has twice as many fights. I mean, Garbrandt's 8-0. Almeida's 21-0. But based off their fights, though, they have the same kind of ratio of knockouts.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them.
Yeah, exactly. Most of their fights are knockouts. Garbrandt coming out of Team Alpha Male. I'm not sure where Almeida's from, but Almeida has fought longer. My heart's with Garbrandt. I think no matter who wins, I'm going to go with Almeida like you. But whoever loses this fight, they're not going to fall much, in my opinion.
No, I don't see that either. But whoever does lose is going to literally fall. I think somebody's going to get KO'd.
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, it's going to happen. Man, this is an awesome fight. I cannot wait for this. The only thing that is a big bummer about this is that it's a Sunday card. I really don't like Sunday cards.
Kind of gets you out of your element of what you're usually used to, right? You get hyped up. It's Saturday morning or whatever. Yeah. For me, I work Saturdays. I usually get off at 4. So I know, when I go home, it's ready for fights. For me now, I'm going to get up, I'm going to go to church, and I'm going to wait for fights.
Yep. Exactly. And for the Renan Barão and Jeremy Stephens fight, Mike, I'm going to go Jeremy Stephens.
Yeah. Well, this is Barão's first fight at featherweight. So we'll see exactly what he's got with 10 more pounds.
Stephens has just been looking better than Barão, though.
Yeah, Stephens, he's lost his last 3 of his last 4, but he hasn't been getting knocked out. He's been still been looking good.
Yeah,
on his feet. He's just hasn't got it when he went to the cards. I'm just gonna go with Barão simply because I'm not sure. But if Barão doesn't look good here, I think that could be. I don't want to say that's it for him. But that's it for him as a contender in any division.
No.
Do you have a pick, Jay, or what do you think is going to happen here? I know you're going.
I think it's going to be. Yeah, it'll have to be a decision win, if anything. I don't see Steven really knocking him out or anything. So.
Yeah, I see Renan Barão winning the decision, opposite of what you say. So yeah, we both agree on the decision, I guess. I just want to backtrack real quick and just say one last thing about Garbrandt Almeida. You were talking about how someone's literally going to fall, and I totally agree with that. I thought someone was literally going to fall if it was a 3-rounder. This is a 5-rounder, so there's no doubt in my mind someone's getting knocked out.
Yeah.
Aljamain Sterling versus Brian Caraway. Look, Sterling's 13-0, just re-signed with the promotion. Caraway 20-7. Look, Caraway, he's there, Jay.
No,
he's there in the division, and he fights.
No, look, and that's exactly you. That's perfectly said. Well said, because that's all he is. He's just kind of relevant because he's in the division. But as far as his fight game, he's irrelevant. Sterling.
Well, let me give him. I'm sorry. Let me just one thing before I let you go on. I got to give him some love though, because the guy's got 17 submissions. But the reason I say he's just there is because he hasn't beaten very many good people, and he seems to duck people. So go ahead, Jay. Sorry.
I thought you were going to say you were going to give him some love because at least he's got Miesha Tate on his arm.
That's true.
I don't know. That's the best thing that's going for him in the fight game is Miesha Tate. And that says a lot because Aljamain Sterling is going to destroy Brian Caraway. I think it could even be over in the first. That's how bad I think it is.
I'm kind of thinking that really Sterling has something to prove. He doesn't have to prove that he's a good fighter. He has to prove that to the UFC, sadly, that he needs to be on main cards.
Yep.
Why is this guy? I got rid of the. Oh no, here's the rankings right here. Let me put this up real quick. This is the bantamweight division. Okay, you got your champ at Cruz. Then you got Dillashaw, Barão. Well, not Barão any longer, obviously. But they didn't pull that off. Faber. Who's below Faber? Aljamain Sterling. How is Aljamain Sterling in the top 5, but he's not yet been on any big main cards? And Jay, I don't mean pay-per-views, just Fox Sports prelims or not prelims, just Fox Sports cards like this one is. I find it very odd.
Yeah, I find it odd too, but I think he's going to prove a point here, and I think he's going to prove 2 points, actually. One, that he should be on these cards, main cards, and 2, that he's going to shut Brian Caraway up. I guess they've got some bad blood there, and he doesn't like Caraway very much, so I think he's going to go for blood. He's going to destroy him in the first. So,
well, not liking Caraway, he had to get in line for that, basically.
Yeah, a lot of people don't like Caraway.
And guys, that's pretty much what we have right now. But because this is a Sunday card, we're gonna have our next podcast on a Monday, so we can get this card in, since that is Sunday. Jay, I don't have anything else unless I've forgotten something. No,
don't have anything else. But I would say check out the Facebook site, MMA Think Tank Podcast Facebook site, and also email us at mmathinktank@gmail.com. And Mike, you have a few things to say about what you're up to?
Yeah, we're also on Twitter. I'm still writing for gmbsports.com. Check them out for, just regular sports stuff as well as MMA. But look, the stuff I send them is the stuff on the Facebook. So sometimes it takes a day or two for them to get it up. But you know what, man? We get it up right now because that's what Jay and I do. Jay's on Twitter. As soon as he sees something, he pops it up there. So we're just trying to get it all out quick for you guys in between shows.
Yep, exactly. And that's MMA Think Tank PC on Twitter. So until next time,
have a good one, guys.